Hamas, an acronym for the Islamic Resistance Movement, is an organization that embodies the complex intersection of politics, religion, and violence in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. While it presents itself as a legitimate political actor, its actions speak louder than its words, revealing a deeply rooted ideology of violence and terror that has devastated countless lives. Founded in 1987 during the First Intifada, Hamas emerged as a radical offshoot of the Muslim Brotherhood, espousing a fundamentalist interpretation of Islam and rejecting any compromise with Israel. The group's charter, published in 1988, explicitly calls for the destruction of Israel and the establishment of an Islamic Palestinian state in its place. This uncompromising stance, coupled with its relentless campaign of violence, has led numerous countries, including the United States, to designate Hamas as a foreign terrorist organization. This designation reflects the international community's recognition of Hamas as a serious threat to peace and security. Despite its terrorist designation, Hamas has sought to portray itself as a legitimate political actor, participating in elections and engaging in social service provision in the Gaza Strip. However, its commitment to violence and its refusal to renounce terrorism have rendered its political aspirations illegitimate in the eyes of many. Hamas's history is replete with acts of terrorism that have claimed the lives of innocent civilians. The group's modus operandi has centered on a strategy of targeting civilians, aiming to inflict maximum casualties and instill fear within Israeli society. From its inception, Hamas has employed a range of terrorist tactics, including suicide bombings, rocket attacks, and kidnappings. These attacks have not only resulted in the tragic loss of life, but have also had a profound psychological impact on Israeli society, creating an atmosphere of fear and insecurity. The group's commitment to violence is deeply ingrained in its ideology, which glorifies martyrdom and views armed struggle as the only path to achieving its political objectives. This unwavering belief in the legitimacy of violence has made it extremely difficult to engage Hamas in meaningful peace negotiations. Moreover, Hamas's control of the Gaza Strip since 2007 has provided it with a safe haven from which to launch attacks against Israel. The group has used this territory to stockpile weapons, train fighters, and plan and execute terrorist operations, further entrenching its status as a terrorist entity. The true nature of Hamas was laid bare on October 7, 2023, when the group unleashed an unprecedented wave of terror upon Israel. This carefully planned and coordinated attack, which began with a massive barrage of rockets fired from Gaza, was far more than a military operation. It was a barbaric assault on innocent civilians. Hamas terrorists stormed into Israeli towns and kibbutzim, indiscriminately gunning down men, women, and children in their homes and streets. The world watched in horror as videos emerged of the massacre, showing the brutal execution of civilians, including the elderly and infants. The attacks, which included the taking of hundreds of hostages, including women, children, and the elderly, shocked the world with their brutality. The images of the aftermath, the stories of families torn apart, and the sheer scale of the violence left an indelible mark on the global conscience. The October 7th massacre was not an isolated incident, but rather the culmination of Hamas's long and bloody history of terrorism. It served as a stark reminder of the group's true nature and its utter disregard for human life. Hamas's ability to carry out its terrorist activities is heavily reliant on its sophisticated financial network, which enables it to generate revenue, transfer funds, and procure weapons. This network operates through a combination of legal and illicit means, exploiting charitable donations, business ventures, and criminal activities. One of the primary sources of funding for Hamas is its vast network of charitable organizations, which operate under the guise of providing humanitarian assistance to Palestinians. These organizations solicit donations from individuals and governments worldwide, often using deceptive tactics to conceal their true purpose. In addition to charitable donations, Hamas generates revenue through its involvement in various business ventures, including construction, agriculture, and trade. These businesses serve as fronts for money laundering and provide a cover for the group's illicit financial activities. Hamas also benefits from state sponsorship, primarily from Iran, which provides the group with financial assistance, military training, and weapons. This support has been instrumental in enhancing Hamas's military capabilities and enabling it to sustain its campaign of violence. Section 5. Aiding and abetting external support for Hamas's agenda. While Hamas's internal financial mechanisms are crucial for its survival, external support from state actors plays a significant role in bolstering its capabilities and advancing its agenda. Iran stands out as a primary backer, providing not only financial aid but also military training and weaponry. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, or IRGC, has been instrumental in training Hamas militants in guerrilla warfare, explosives handling and rocket production. This support has significantly enhanced Hamas's military prowess, enabling it to pose a more formidable threat to Israel. Beyond Iran, Hamas has received support from various other state and non-state actors, including Qatar and Turkey. These countries have provided financial assistance, political backing, and a platform for Hamas to spread its propaganda. The external support Hamas receives has enabled it to withstand international pressure, evade sanctions, and continue its terrorist activities. This underscores the need for a coordinated international effort to cut off Hamas's lifelines and hold its sponsors accountable. Section 6. Beyond the battlefield, Hamas's exploitation of international aid. Adding to the complexity of the situation is Hamas's cynical manipulation of humanitarian aid intended for the Palestinian people. The group has been accused of diverting aid funds to finance its military operations, depriving civilians of essential resources. Reports have surfaced of Hamas confiscating humanitarian supplies, including food, medicine, and building materials, and redirecting them to its own members or using them to construct military infrastructure. This exploitation of aid undermines the humanitarian efforts of international organizations and exacerbates the suffering of the Palestinian people. Furthermore, Hamas has been accused of using civilians as human shields, placing military installations in densely populated areas and launching attacks from civilian locations. This tactic not only endangers the lives of innocent Palestinians, but also makes it difficult for Israel to defend itself without causing civilian casualties. The misuse of aid and the exploitation of civilians are egregious violations of international law and constitute war crimes. These actions further demonstrate Hamas's disregard for human life and its willingness to prioritize its own ideology over the well-being of the Palestinian people. Section 7. The long arm of justice, holding Hamas accountable. The international community has a moral and legal obligation to hold Hamas accountable for its terrorist crimes. This requires a multi-pronged approach that includes legal prosecution, targeted sanctions, and diplomatic pressure. In recent years, there have been efforts to bring Hamas leaders to justice. The U.S. Department of Justice, for instance, unsealed terrorism charges against several high-ranking Hamas officials in 2024 related to their roles in planning and executing attacks against Israeli civilians. These legal actions, while a step in the right direction, are often hampered by the difficulty of apprehending individuals located in Hamas-controlled territories or countries unwilling to extradite them. Nonetheless, it is crucial to continue pursuing legal avenues to demonstrate that those who engage in terrorism will be held accountable for their actions. In addition to legal prosecution, targeted sanctions against Hamas leaders and entities are essential to disrupt the group's financial networks and limit its ability to operate. These sanctions should target individuals and organizations involved in financing terrorism, procuring weapons, and planning attacks. Section 8. A House Divided. The Struggle for Palestinian Unity. The question of Hamas's potential integration into the Palestine Liberation Organization, or PLO, has been a source of ongoing debate and division within Palestinian politics. Proponents argue that bringing Hamas into the PLO fold could help to moderate the group's stance and pave the way for a unified Palestinian front in negotiations with Israel. However, opponents, including many within the Fatah-led Palestinian Authority, view Hamas's inclusion as a dangerous concession that would legitimize the group's use of violence and undermine the prospects for a two-state solution. They argue that Hamas has consistently refused to renounce terrorism or recognize Israel's right to exist, making it an unreliable partner for peace. The debate over Hamas's integration into the PLO highlights the deep divisions within Palestinian society and the challenges of achieving a unified political vision. As long as Hamas remains committed to its ideology of violence and refuses to engage in meaningful peace negotiations, its inclusion in the PLO is likely to remain a contentious issue. Section 9. A stark choice, terrorism or peace. Hamas faces a stark choice: continue down the path of violence and terrorism, or choose the path of peace and reconciliation. The group's current trajectory offers little hope for the Palestinian people, only perpetuating a cycle of violence and suffering. The international community must continue to exert pressure on Hamas to renounce terrorism, recognize Israel's right to exist, and abide by previous agreements. This includes maintaining Hamas's designation as a terrorist organization, cutting off its funding sources, and holding its leaders accountable for their crimes. At the same time, it is essential to support moderate Palestinian voices who are committed to a peaceful resolution to the conflict. This includes strengthening the Palestinian Authority, promoting economic development in the West Bank and Gaza, and fostering people-to-people initiatives that build bridges of understanding and coexistence. The path to peace is fraught with challenges, but it is the only path that offers hope for a brighter future for both Israelis and Palestinians. Hamas must choose whether it will be part of the problem or part of the solution.